Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is for you in the world, and whether you're here with me live, if you are, welcome, I'm so excited, or whether you're watching this back by the replay, and I give you a huge acknowledgement for that, because sometimes that's harder, right? To find the time, dedicate the time. Welcome to day 2 of Cherish, an exploration into the ecosystem of relationships. I hope you enjoyed day 1 yesterday. I had so much fun delivering it, too much fun. We ran over time, but it's important that we share all we can, right, together. So if you are here live, remember, keep the chat box open. You can make comments, you can ask questions as we go along. This is your time too, your conversation too. If you're watching the replay, we have our beautiful community set up right there in the app, whether you're watching it on a desktop or a laptop or on your phone, a tablet. Just click on community, which will be down the bottom, or along the left-hand side, click on to Sky High Coaching Community, and I will be in there. Just tag me with a little @ symbol and let me know how you're finding the masterclass, and I will be straight in there to chat with you. I really love to know how you found the home play. So if you've done the home play already, the home play first before you're watching this, if you've had a go, if you've done some of it, maybe you haven't done all of it, that's cool. It's all perfect. It's totally up to you whether you go through the home play or not. It will help raise your awareness to who you're being in the world, how you're showing up in the world, and how you're contributing to your ecosystem of relationships. So we don't just post that in there for fun. It is for you. And if you can find the time to take yourself through that, I guarantee you will find it of the utmost value, and you will glean some insights about yourself. I'm just going to share a tiny little thing with you before we leap right in, because it's a little bit funny. I have literally just had something happen 5 minutes ago. Getting ready to jump on, saw a message had come through on Instagram, which is how I speak with my nephew. No phone. Well, has one, but doesn't answer it, doesn't text back or anything. It's all through Instagram, through the Insta, the IG. And I thought we were doing something this week, and apparently my brother's changed it. His father changed it. So I'm in it. I'm standing in it right now, right? The frustration, the annoyance, the irritation, feeling unseen, feeling a little disrespected, being conscious that he's an older brother, being conscious that I don't slide into little sister, older brother dynamic. We're not children anymore. I'm 53 years old. So I just wanted to let this stuff's happening all the time, around us and for us. It's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And this happens all the time when I'm about to launch something, or I have, and I'm immersed in it, that the universe gives me my clients laugh and say, you just got some more content. You got some new content. Something that I have to navigate through to prove to myself that I'm growing, expanding, leading myself, leading and inspiring others, and proving to you that I do this work too. I'm human and I'm right in it as well. I was talking to someone today who has been in and out being a client for a long time. And we were on the phone today, and she actually was talking about something and said, oh, I thought this was over. I thought I was through this. I thought this had ended. And I said, well, we never stop growing. We never stop growing. It never ends unless we choose. You can choose to just, I have clients say that too. I wish sometimes I didn't want to do all this expanding and growing. Right, just wish I just skipped through life reacting to everything as it's thrown at me. But anyway, that's not who I am. It's not who you are. And I know it's not who you are because you're here. Now, today is exciting because today is emotional intelligence. Now, whether you're here live or watching back via replay, please have your notepad out, your pen out. The home play goes even further this time, and there's quite a bit of information in here, not too much. I'm not going to overwhelm you because, again, emotional intelligence is this really big topic, this really big subject that has so many pieces to it, to the point where I went and lay in my backyard today on the grass and thought about which pieces I wanted to bring in for our hour together. We've spent an hour together, an hour, 20 minutes already. So I knew, and you shared with me a bit where you were at. So it was good that I could lie on the grass today and think, right, these are the bits we're going to talk about. So have your pen and notepad handy. It's gold. It's all gold. You're going to want to write some of this down. So let's start. So let me know how you're feeling. If you're here live, jump in the chat box. Are you excited? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling more courageous? Are you feeling more open? Are you tired today? You're in Australia, it's 7 p.m. on a Monday night. Maybe you're feeling a bit tired. Let me know how you're feeling. So yesterday we opened a conversation, had a great conversation around energy being emotions in motion. Emotional intelligence is such a huge part of our life. How many people did you talk to today? Those of you who are here live. How many people did you converse with today? Or make eye contact with while you were driving your car? Oh, no, you go first. Oh, no, you go first. Or a stranger you said hello to when you were out walking your dog. That's me every morning. Morning to everybody. Who did you talk to at work? Who did you talk to in your home? Who did you talk to on the phone? Who did you converse with via email? Like, we are in conversation all the time. We are in the ecosystem of relationships, and how those relationships are formed and how they evolve and what they grow into and what they don't grow into is often linked to our emotions and the other person's emotions and our level of emotional intelligence. And we now know that our emotions create the energetic magnetic force that leaves our body, goes out into the ether, and it's part of the way, some of the way that we attract the type of people we attract and the experiences and the situations and the events that we attract to us, right? And it's linked to our emotions. So where your life is right now, where my life is right now, has been impacted or has been shaped, that's a better word, by our level of emotional intelligence. And what happens moving forward with my family dynamic is going to be a direct result of how I handle this, and how I handle this is going to be directly linked to my level of emotional intelligence. So let's dive into emotions. They're a contributor or a contributing factor to what and who we attract into our life. We just talked about that. Our emotions play a very huge role in the relationship you have with yourself and the relationship you have with other people. And you might be thinking, with myself, that's going to make sense as we go through our conversation tonight. No one else is responsible for our emotions but us. No one else is responsible for your emotions but you, which is sometimes, oh, really? But how I feel is everybody else is doing. Like, I could be thinking that right now. It's my brother's fault that I'm feeling this way, right? But no, he's not inside my head. He's not inside my body. He doesn't have access to my feelings, my thoughts. So he definitely doesn't have access to my emotions. I'm the only person who decides what I do with this situation, this information I've just received, and I'm the person who decides how I'm going to let that affect or not affect my body, and where I go from here. And by my body, our emotions live in our body. We feel them. You know that, right? We feel our emotions. We don't think our emotions. We feel our emotions, which is part of their power. And as I said, they're a huge contributing factor to the status of your life right now and the status of your life in the future. So really simple example, if I hang up from this presentation and get on the phone with my brother and yell and scream and abuse, I'm probably going to do some damage to that relationship. And that is probably going to have an impact in my future with my family, right? So, of course, it has an impact. And especially, so this is family, think about this at work. I mean, there are people who have been fired because they can't get a hold of their emotions. People that we either know someone, or it was us, or we've heard the stories, watched the movie, read the book. And I truly believe most friendship and relationship breakdowns are due to not so much something someone did. Sometimes it is, but so often it's someone's emotional intelligence. Okay, this will start to make sense as we go through. So we touched on this yesterday, what emotional intelligence was. Remember, we talked about how it's understanding how your behaviors, words, actions impact other people. This is one of the, I guess, official definitions of emotional intelligence. There's a few. The ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. That's all. That's all. You've so got this. In fact, let's not even talk anymore. Let's just hang up. That's all it is. It's easy peasy. My gosh, if it was easy peasy, there would be very little conflict in the world. It's clearly not easy peasy. That is a lot. That is a lot. The ability to understand, can you name all your emotions as you're having them? At the moment, I feel hurt, angry, frustrated, irritated, disrespected, unseen, unheard, right? I've had a lot of practice though. Use and manage, the ability to understand, use and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress. So I have my stress busters. Breath is the main one. Breathing, communicate effectively. So probably don't jump on the blower and have a huge, give him a piece of my mind, right? Can we empathize? Can I empathize? Can I sit back and put myself in his shoes? Okay, put myself in their shoes, right? Empathy is often confused with sympathy, right? Empathy isn't sympathy. Empathy isn't fixing anything. Empathy is linked to understanding. Overcome challenges. Well, I've had relationship challenges in the past where I felt misunderstood and unseen and angry and annoyed and irritated and invisible, and right. So I've overcome those. I can probably overcome this one and diffuse any conflict. Well, we're not in conflict. Well, not yet. Okay. So this is it in a nutshell. This is you in a nutshell. This is me in a nutshell. This is every human being on the planet in a nutshell. If we go right back to basics, we are always operating from one of two states. We are either operating from a place of love or we are operating from a place of fear. Write that down. Now, when we're operating from a place of love, everything's fine. It's all rainbows and puppies and champagne and ice cream and chocolate, right? Dark peppermint. When we're operating from love, we're in a new relationship, we've made a new friend who we think's amazing, we got the dream role in a new organization, we're loving, everyone's so helpful and friendly, and like when we haven't seen, we've lived overseas for 5 years, and then we come back and we stay with our parents for a while, and our brother comes and sees us, and it's all fun because we haven't seen each other in so long. Everyone's so happy to see you, and you're so happy to see them, right? Love, everything is that. It's easy. It's easy. People say, take the rose-colored glasses off. And no, he can do no wrong. I've never felt this way before. Take the rose-colored glasses off. No, he's perfect. No, she's perfect. Da, 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 right? When we're operating from love, it's easy. It's easy. We don't need to talk about that tonight. You're nailing that, right? Now, fear is the other state if we're not operating from love, it has to be fear. So what are we fearful of, and what does it look like? Now, I wrote these on this slide. I do all my own slides, and I'm really excited. I'm really happy with myself because there was no mistakes on the ones yesterday, and see how we go today. I just pulled these out in 5 seconds, literally. Fear of being hurt, number one, right? Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being invisible, fear of being disappointed, huge one. Research tells us we have a fear of public speaking or dying. No, not in my experience. Everyone's biggest fear is being disappointed. I'm disappointed about what's gone down before I've jumped on with you. Fear of being disrespected, ignored, controlled, dominated. Actually, while I'm going through them, write down the ones that resonate with you. Hurt, I'll go through it again just in case you hadn't been writing down. Hurt, misunderstood, invisible, disappointed, disrespected, ignored, controlled, dominated. Fear of failure, some fear of success. Fear of embarrassment, might be embarrassing, which is commonly linked to fear of failure. Fear of what other people think, huge. Fear of feeling unheard or being unheard. Fear of being dominated. Fear of, I've got unheard there twice. Do you know what? When I was typing this, I was thinking, I've got unheard in there twice. And I even went back and looked, didn't see it. There you go. Told you so. Knew there'd be one. Unheard. Feeling silly or stupid. Fear of rejection, huge one. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being taken advantage of. So some of these are very similar, but they are different. They are actually different fears, and it is important to be able to name your specific emotion you're going through, and also being able to link that to a specific fear if you wish to deepen or elevate your emotional intelligence. So these are our fears, and these fears shape our behavior, shape our reaction, shape our, when we're reacting rather than responding to a situation, to an event, or to a person. The word most people have heard of is triggered. You may prefer activated. You've stepped into a situation that has raised some emotion, negative, if you like, unhelpful emotion. It doesn't feel good, emotion in you. Or we're here to talk about relationships in this masterclass. So let's leave it there. Someone has said something, someone has done something, someone has not done something, right? And one of these fears has come up. It's a primal and powerful emotion. Fear has been with us from the beginning of us. It's part of us, okay? I have a fear of not being worthy or not good enough. Thank you. I'll add that in next time I run this masterclass. I get triggered by criticism. There you go. So now you know that's the fear. not being worthy, not good enough. So you know what to work on, because the person who's in control of you is you. Your emotions, right, is you. So now you know what to work on. So fear's primal. It's coded in us. It's within us. We can't get away from it. We're always going to have a level of fear, and we don't want to release our fear, because it's fear that stops us from running in front of a moving car or walking down a dark alleyway when it's not safe. We need an element of healthy fear or healthy anxiety, because that is what stops us from moving into dangerous situations. Now, in caveman days, our fear was very well received and needed and essential, because we were trying to keep the species alive. We wanted the species to survive, right? So when we were up against a saber-toothed tiger or another tribe that may have been out to harm us, let's go with the saber-toothed tiger. We have an instinct. We're part of the animal kingdom. Every part or entity, animal in the animal kingdom, has this response. And it is first response in the animal kingdom is to run. So that's the first response. If you see a deer that notices a leopard, the first thing it does is tries to run away. You watch it on a documentary or something. So their first instinct is to run. That's what they want to do first. They want to get away. Then if they can't, there's nowhere for them to go, they'll try and hide. Or they'll run until they can get to a spot they think they can hide in, and they'll hide. That's the freeze, right? Now, if they're backed into a corner and now it's fight or die, they're going to fight. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try and stay alive. This is primal survival instinct, okay? And we have this instinct inside of us as well. But here's the thing. I don't know how many saber-toothed tigers you came across today. I didn't come across any. I also am unfortunate enough, and I say that honestly, like that's genuine when I say that, I didn't come across anything that was going to physically harm me today. I might another day, but today I didn't, and I'm grateful for that. So most of our fears are psychological, and they're the fears that we just talked about, right? So we're not really running away from saber-toothed tigers anymore. They're more the fears: not being liked, not being worthy, not being good enough, okay? Those fears. But here's the thing. We still go into the same response. So we will still flee. We'll walk out of the meeting, slam the door. We'll walk out of the argument with our partner, get in the car, drive off. We'll, I was a great one in the olden days for if I wasn't living with someone I was dating, like if I was just dating someone and there was a little bit of conflict, I'd just leave and go home. Right. I was great at running. We'll break up with the person. We'll, right? We'll quit the job. Talked about that yesterday. Or we'll go into freeze, which is hide. Now to hide, so we think, okay, I can't run. I'm stuck in this meeting and the door's all the way over there, right? And I'd love to get up and leave. I went into fear response so badly once. I was working, I wasn't a coach. I didn't know a lot of these principles. I didn't know as much about how our mind works as I do now. And I not only walked out of a meeting because I was completely triggered, felt unseen, unheard, disrespected by someone I trusted too. I got up and I left the meeting, and then I walked into my office and picked up my handbag and left the building. I went home. Like I abandoned my work day. That's pretty not very emotional intelligent. Thankfully, I had an awesome boss who was also in the meeting and watched everything go down. And he was very understanding. But that's a, you know, that's quite an extreme response in your work day. So nowadays, people are working hybridly, they're at home or they're working at home, 100% of the time. They will do things like jump out of the Zoom meeting. I'm not very happy here. I'm emotionally triggered. They don't know. We don't usually realize we've gone into some kind of fear because it'll show up as an emotion like anger, irritation, annoyance, right? Exactly what we were talking about earlier. So we might jump out of the Zoom meeting. Now, if we can't get away, we'll hide. Now, at work, that might look like I'm going to turn my camera off in the Zoom meeting and my mic, and I'm not going to contribute anymore. Or I'm not going to contribute to the meeting anymore. Obviously, no one's listening to anything I say. Obviously, I'm not as smart as everybody else. Obviously, my ideas aren't any good. So I bugger them. I'm just not going to say anything. Right? So that's a form of hiding. Relationships, we will freeze someone out or we'll punish someone with silence. I'm not going to answer his calls. I'm not going to return her texts. She can sweat it out. He can just think about what he's done for a while, right? That's a form of hiding. It's also a form of fighting, a passive way of fighting. So if we, so in the animal kingdom, if we can't run, we'll hide, or we'll run then hide. And then if we're backed into a corner, that's when we fight in the animal kingdom. But some humans just like the fight, right? Some humans just like the fight. They actually skip the first two and they go straight into the argument, into the fighting. So this could be you, no judgment. I'm just painting the picture for you. So think about your favorite response, whether it is to run, whether it is to hide. I just had a client message me about an hour ago saying there's something very overwhelming going on in her life. And she said, oh my gosh, I just want to get into bed and hide. So I'm so overwhelmed, I just want to get into bed and hide. So she's now evolved enough that she understands what's going on. I'm overwhelmed, and she said something like, I have a fear that I can't do this and I've gone into hide mode. I just want to get into bed and hide. So, and I messaged her back and we talked about breath and she's okay, and start doing the breath technique that I've taught her. And so once we start to become more self-aware, we can start to name our emotions, we can start to name our fears, we can start to see them. And the other thing is, it's beautiful, is you can start to see it in others. And when you can start to see it in others, you are less reactive and you are less likely to fall into fear, and you are more likely to have empathy. You are more likely to see someone else's side of things. You are more likely to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and you're going to respond a whole lot differently. So how did I get these fears? This is what you might be thinking. Now, some of them may be absolute no-brainer for you. You might know exactly where you got the fear from because it was so big in your life. It was so emotional. It may have even been traumatic. It's very obvious to you. You know where these fears came from, and maybe you're busily working through them. Sometimes, however, we don't know. And we talked yesterday about things being in your subconscious mind, sub meaning underneath, under your conscious mind, and it's unconscious. You don't know it's there. Now, when that's when something happened, you experienced something. So you experienced something that you can very well, you can vividly remember. That's where that fear's come from. And you could sit down and tell me, you could get on a call with me tomorrow and go, yep, I know exactly where it's come from. This is it. But sometimes someone will sit in front of me and we'll go right back to young childhood. And often it will come out if someone's given the time and the space to really reflect, but sometimes they just don't know. And here's the thing, that's okay. That's okay. We used to think that it was really uber important to be able to see where this fear began and how it got downloaded into our system and how we became coded, and so that we could unravel it. We now know that just knowing it's there is actually fine. Because we don't need to sometimes knowing where it came from is really important, because you can go back as an adult, especially if it happened in childhood, because you can go back as an adult, a rational adult with a fully formed brain, which you didn't have when you were 4, 5, 6, 7, and you gave something meaning that a child with an underdeveloped brain can't logically or rationally unpack, if you like. Process, that's a better word. But you can, if we can go back and you can see it as an adult, you can be like, yep, I can see that now. And that was actually quite an irrational fear. Okay. Or rational. Yep, that was a real fear. Now we know where it's come from, and now we can start to move it out. But if you can't remember, that's okay. Just think about, if you can name the fear, you know the fear, you can still work on it moving forward. But we got them by a situation or an event, an experience, something that we experienced. Now, because we're here talking about relationships in this masterclass, it will be something you experienced with somebody else. Makes sense, right? Makes absolute sense. So now you go into that fear. If somebody now today mentions, it can be a little thing, mentions the same word or talks with the same accent, or has the same phrase, catchphrase, uses the same catchphrase, or it could be an actual the situation might arise again and someone treats you and your relationship the same way as someone in the past. They might not even be, as we talked about yesterday, it may not even be the same. It might be your perception, because you're so afraid of it happening again that you may be seeing something that isn't really there because of your reticular activating system. But that's where they came from, and that's why you have them. So let's have a look at, I'm just checking time. I really want to give you some examples of, if you've got your own, feel free, jump in the chat box. So intimate, how this can affect your fears. This is what we're looking at, how your fears can affect these areas of your relationships. So intimate, really classic example, my own example. I was engaged. I found out that my fiance was cheating on me. I was absolutely devastated. We broke up, and that I was one of those women who had one of those diaries from the 90s that had "All Men Are Bastards" on the cover. That was good energetics, wasn't it? Carrying that around, looking for my next love. Yes, you can see that wouldn't have been very good energetically. Of course, I had a fear of that happening again, right? And that definitely affected, I had trust issues. It definitely affected the way I showed up in my next relationships until I had worked through that and healed. And I did that with help. In my career, my very first role, yes, I had a boss who was quite the workplace bully. And back then, workplace bullying didn't really exist. Well, it existed, but no one really talked about it very much. And his mode of operandi was he would call me because he was in an office and I wasn't. It was very, very small family business. Not that he was part of the family. I had been employed by the family and he wasn't part of the family. I used to make a lot of mistakes. It was my very first job. I used to make a lot of mistakes. And here's the other thing. The more he yelled at me, because he would call me and say, can you come in here, please? And I would have to get up and go into his office and then he would yell at me. So you can imagine how traumatizing your boss ringing you and saying, can you come and see me became. And something I was going to say has just fallen away, so it's clearly not important. So, but I thought that's what I was going to say. So because I went into fear, now I'm in fear of not being good enough. Now I'm in fear of making a mistake, right? Of course, my work is I'm making a lot of mistakes because now I'm so fearful of making a mistake. Of course, what am I doing? I'm making mistakes. So this is how we work. So I would get yelled at again, and then I'd make another mistake, and then I'd get yelled at again. It didn't go well. But I carried subconsciously, not even realizing this, for about at least a decade after that. And I went overseas. I worked in London. I went to Queensland, worked there for a while, worked in London, worked in Melbourne because that job wasn't in Melbourne. I didn't live in Melbourne then. I worked in Europe and I had the most lovely bosses. And I was still very, very nervous and anxious and fearful of anyone in any kind of management or leadership role. So how on earth was I going to move into a management or a leadership role if I was afraid of them and thought that they were all mean? Well, I knew they weren't all mean and nasty because I had some really nice bosses, but it was subconscious, it was underneath. Until I started working with a coach, I went to a coach and said, I want a leadership role. It's not happening. And she picked this up very, very quickly. So then we could work on that. And then I went zoom straight into a leadership role. So, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being yelled at, the fear of being disliked, the fear of being incompetent. Family, I've just given you an example. A real life one. So I'll give you a client example. I had a client a couple of years ago who has a child with quite high needs, and she was having a lot of difficulty communicating with her in-laws because they would often set up these family events, and it was very difficult for her to take her child to these events, and they wouldn't hear her, they wouldn't listen to her when she was trying to talk to them about how her daughter would not be able to be in this type of situation. And because she'd fallen into fear of being disliked, she felt unheard, she felt unseen, she felt disrespected, all those things. But also this is your in-laws, right? So you don't want to cause a family incident, and you don't want to be disliked, and you don't want it to affect your relationship. So once we could do but she's getting irritated and annoyed, and now she wants to hide, or doesn't want to go. So she wants to hide, she doesn't want to be there, but then of course she's forced to go there. So now she's kind of going into fight mode, right? So once we could look at all this and put it all out on the table, and we could tease it all out and relieve her fears, and then we did a lot of work on courageous conversations and how to have a really beautiful, authentic, loving conversation, clear, kind conversation with her in-laws, and she started to put that into practice and into play. It's all just turned out beautifully. that this stuff is sounds really simple, but it takes a lot of courage a lot of the time. So we do have to have some courage here. Friendships can be little minefields, right? So friendships I find to be really dynamic, and my best friend is I've had my best friend for 50 years. We met at kindergarten. I have another friend that I met at kindergarten that I see all the time. I had lunch last Friday with a girlfriend from high school. So I can nurture friendships for a long time, but I've also really messed it up. And I've really messed up friendships because of my fears and because of my level of emotional intelligence and my lack of boundaries and my fear of being disliked, wanting to say yes to things when I really wanted to say no. So growing, resentful and bitter and not being able to have those conversations, right? So all the things that we're here to talk about over these 3 days, because I know how valuable they are. And I know that when we get this right, we can really navigate anything. And when we get it wrong, like I have, it can have, lifelong repercussions, which is happening for me. I've lost friendships, in other words, that were very dear to me. So before we move into the home play, I'm going to stay on time tonight. I wonder if you've heard of a social contract. So if you're here with me live, just jump in the chat box and just say yes, no. Have you heard of social contracts, and do you know what they are? So I'm curious to know. I'm just curious to know how widespread social contracts are talked about. So we move into the world, or we wake up every day and we move into the world, and most people on the planet, I don't know, it's another word, isn't metaphorically, energetically, I guess, we sign a social contract. Not heard of it. Okay, great. Okay. So thank you for letting me know. So we sign a social, what's referred to as a social contract. And that social contract is, I will obey the law. I will stop at a red stop sign. I will do my best to keep other people safe. I will, by driving at the speed limit, crossing at the lights, keeping myself safe, I guess. I will, and then there's that part of the social contract. Then there's another part of the social contract, which is I will have a shower. I will wear deodorant. I will, because I don't want to offend anyone, I don't want to smell and offend anyone. I will brush my teeth so that I don't breathe my bad breath on you. Some people who are smokers or coffee drinkers are often brushing their teeth at work because, the coffee breath and the smoker's breath. And so we have these social contracts. Now, the other part of social contract that a lot of people aren't aware of and or don't energetically sign, right, is that I won't leave my house angry and take it out on you. I won't leave my house annoyed and take it out on you. I won't leave my house irritated and take it out on you. Is this making sense? So that we're very good at having a shower and wearing deodorant and brushing our teeth and not wanting to offend anyone by smelling, nothing but fresh as a daisy, or and we're very good at following the road rules and waiting in the queue for our coffee, waiting in the queue at the supermarket, not pushing in front of people, waiting our turn in certain places. These are all social contracts. But some of us are not great at the social contract of you know what? I'm going to make sure when I leave my house that I'm the best version of me for that day. And I'm going to do my very best. And that doesn't mean we don't have bad days. And it doesn't mean things don't happen. And it doesn't mean we're not sad sometimes. But it's, are you emotionally intelligent enough to sort your own emotions out and not take them out on other people? Why do we take them out on other people? Not really here for us to talk about tonight, but we're here, so why not? The easiest way to get a negative feeling or emotion out of your body is to transfer it to somebody else. That's a whole other conversation, right? And I've watched people try and do it to me. I've been very happy, la, 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 la. I've caught up with someone who's angry, something's happened to them, and they've ranted and raved. And then, people start to take things out on you. And this is emotional intelligence, especially at work. I'm feeling stressed. I'm starting to feel these little fears are coming up about how I'm being perceived at work for, one of a better term or phrase or example. And now I'm going to fight back. I'm going to argue back. And this is a lot of times why people choose fight over freeze or run, because they've learned, and they'll be doing this all subconsciously and unconsciously, they've learned that if I'm mad and I can make someone else mad, it's left my body. Whew. That feels better. So good example is what's just happened just then. So I had the message 10 minutes, 15 minutes before jumping on our call. All I wanted to do was, my first instinct was to leave my office, go down to the other end of the house and rant about it to my husband. I'm so mad at my brother right now, right? So not to transfer it out of me, because I'm not fighting or battling my husband, but to be validated, right? Oh, that is terrible. Oh, you're right, honey. Oh, you should be mad. Oh, now I'm validated. So we do this too, or we try and rally our army. Come with me, and we'll have an intervention, or we'll tell our boss how terrible she is. You come with me. If we all do it together, it'll have more impact, right? Rallying an army. The pity party. I'm going to ring everyone I know and tell them what happened so they can all say, poor me, poor you, poor you, poor you. And then I'm validated that I am poor me. That's right. I am poor me. Everyone's validating it. But me going down and offloading this onto my husband would have made me feel better. I feel better now. I've got that off my chest. Oh, I feel better now. I just had to tell someone. Oh, I feel better now. I just had to have a rant, right? We've all done it. We've all been there. But now I have projected some of it onto him, because he might get angry on my behalf or irritated or annoyed on my behalf. He's got very good emotional intelligence, so he probably wouldn't. He's got some of the best emotional intelligence I've ever seen in anybody. So coming back to let's circle back to social contracts. So we'll just think about, are you in control of your emotions enough that when you go out into the world, are you the best version of you for that day? Now, some people have a morning routine, they meditate, they take 3 breaths. A lot of people nowadays have a gratitude practice. 3 things I'm grateful for today. Personally, if you've been on one of my classes before or worked with me before, you would know I don't get out of bed until I'm feeling extremely grateful for my life. So as I'm waking up, I'm starting to run through everything that I'm grateful for in my life. And then when I'm feeling just so happy and grateful and blessed, that's when I get out of bed. And some days are harder than others. Some days are harder than others. I'm not always perfect at it. But it's just part of, I don't want to get out of bed on the wrong side, the saying, and be bitching. I try not to swear on these things, but, bitching at my husband from the minute he sees me in the morning. That's not pleasant for anybody. And that's not me being in control of my emotions. So let's go back. We're moving into the home play now. Let's go back to emotional intelligence. The ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress. Now, if you know someone with exceptional emotional intelligence, if I'm talking to someone about workplace or careers, one of the examples we look at is thinking about a leader that you may have now or you've had in the past who you really admired. That person, the reason they were so successful in their leadership, part of it will definitely be they will have had an elevated level of emotional intelligence. So these are the leaders who are keeping their head when everybody else is losing theirs, who can diffuse conflict because they don't get wrapped up in it. They don't get triggered. Now, that's what we think. We think they don't get triggered. Here's the thing, and I know this for certain because I work with these people every day. They're triggered. They're activated. They've got their own fears. We're always going to have fear. It's in us. It's inbuilt. It just changes. The fear becomes different as we grow, evolve, expand. What they're very good at is when they start to feel activated or when they start to feel triggered, they can hold it. Okay, there it is. They are very self-aware. Remember yesterday I said we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence tomorrow, and so much of it is self-awareness. They are so self-aware that I am now triggered. Okay, I can feel it. I know it. But I need to deal with this and I need to deal with this calmly, and you're just going to wait over there. They don't push it down. That's how we get sick. They don't ignore it. They don't push it down. They don't pretend it's not there. They just get it to wait over there for a moment, do what they need to do over here. And then when the conflict's diffused, when the challenge is gone, when they've solved the problem, right? They've communicated to everyone and they've done that effectively because they haven't let their emotions take over. And we'll be talking about communication tomorrow. Don't worry, right? They haven't let their emotions take over, so they're able to think and communicate effectively. When it's done and it's over, they then go back and they call it back in. Either with themselves, if they're exceptional at their own emotional intelligence, they'll look at it themselves. They might journal. They're very curious about it. They'll come and work with me. They'll come, I have lots of people that get on calls with me and say, this happened last week, I blew my top, or this happened last week and I didn't, but I felt triggered. I really want to talk. I want to unpack this with you. I want to talk about this. Or they'll do it with their spouse, or they'll do it with a best friend, right? Someone they really trust. So they won't just ignore it, because if you ignore it, it's going to happen again and again and again. I had the most beautiful woman come to work with me a few years ago. So beautiful. So often people come to work with people like me because they've got some huge dream, vision, desire, and it's not happening as fast as they would like. They want to collapse time around it. Basically, that's what I do, help people collapse time around their dreams and desires, right? She came to me, and it wasn't about the new job or the new role or the great love coming into her life or writing the book or starting the business, or it was, I want to know why I react the way I do. And it was to situations and events, but in particular to people. Right? Well, let's go. So we did 6 months private, and then she came 6 months into one of my group coaching programs because she'd work with me, and then she wanted to be in a group situation so she could learn with the others. And that's what we did. Why did she react to people, places, events, situations the way she did? We did a year on emotional intelligence. And she's in elite sports, and it's just transformed what she has been able to achieve since then, working on nothing but her emotional intelligence. Surely you can see, you're smart. You can see that working in this area can change so much across your whole life. So let's start. Here's your home plate. And again, it's all about raising your awareness. So this is what I encourage you to dive into. Are you able to name the emotions you experience throughout the day? Start to play with that. Carry a notepad around with you, because so often people say they feel good or bad. Maybe they can even extend to mad and sad, right? We feel a range of emotion, such a wide range of emotions. Are you able, start to play with this, to go through your day? Oh, I'm feeling this right now, I'm feeling this right now, I'm feeling this right now, I'm feeling this right now. This is the very first part of emotional intelligence, self-awareness. And I'm curious about, what are your activities? What are your go-tos to relieve stress? Or do you have a practice that you do when you're not stressed to help you stay calm? Don't worry about if you don't have time to write this down. It's all posted for you in the app where the replays are. What is your communication style, and is it clear and effective? Are you understood? When you sit down to talk with someone, you have a request or you have feedback. Do they understand you? And do they follow through with your request or your feedback? What is your understanding of the meaning of empathy? Do you actually understand what empathy is? You might need to do some research. And do you practice it? Because empathy is a huge part of emotional intelligence. What was your last biggest challenge, and how did you overcome it? What was your last, we all have them. What was your last biggest challenge, and how did you overcome it? Looking at how you overcame challenges in the past and what worked, what didn't, is going to give you clues to how to do this in the future. When was the last time you encountered conflict, and what did you do? I'm about to step in right now. Right? When was the last time you encountered conflict, and what did you do? And were you happy with what you did? Yep, I did this, I nailed it, I'm really happy about it. Good, tick. Actually, I did this, and I could have handled that better, or I could have spoken up when I didn't. And final question, if you practiced self-love more deeply than you do right now today, where would you stop holding back? Because what would you do if you had a little more courage? Because remember, emotional intelligence takes courage. And if some of those fears were familiar to you, and remember I said right at the beginning, your emotional intelligence has an impact on how you treat yourself and others. If you're fearful, which is one of the biggest emotions, you're probably holding yourself back from your potential, from your dreams, from your desires, from things you want in your life. And remember, we talked yesterday about you don't have to deserve any of them. You don't have to do anything to deserve them. You were born deserving them. You were born worthy. You're worthy for your dreams and desires just by being here. All you had to do was get here. You were born worthy. So I realized I can't remember, my 30s maybe, sometime. So long ago now, I can't really remember. But I woke up one day because I started working with my coach and doing this kind of work. And I woke up one day and thought, not even thought, realized, it was a huge insight that I had lived most of my life in fear. And most of my choices I'd made had been made to keep myself safe. Right back to high school. So that was a huge realization for me and a huge insight, and that insight changed everything for me. So if you had a little more courage, what would you do? Are you holding yourself back somewhere? Maybe you're not. If you're not, kudos to you. If you're not, the question is different. What would you do if you had a whole lot more courage? Change up the question. Have you got any questions for me tonight? I'm going to stay here for a couple more minutes. I am going to be back for our final call tomorrow at 1. If you can make it, I would love to see you. We might get some overseas people tomorrow at 1, maybe not. I'll be here anyway. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box yet. Oh, we've got 1 p.m. Yes. 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Okay, I'll just stay here for a little moment, see if we've got any questions. What is tomorrow's topic? Well, it's our third topic. So our third topic is courageous communication. We're going to go through how we do have those authentic, clear, kind, assertive conversations. I'll be talking about the difference between assertive conversation and an aggressive conversation. They're very different. Sometimes we don't realize. Okay, so you're so welcome. You're so welcome. We might leave it there. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much for catching up via the replay, if that's what's been perfect for you. I am loving this so far. I am loving you being here. Don't miss tomorrow, even if you have to watch the replay, because knowing how to have these conversations is gold, 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 gold. And I'll be opening an offer tomorrow that is very, very, very special for those who are registered in this program. It's so much fun. I will see you tomorrow, or I will see you somewhere on the internet.